The boardroom on the 42nd floor of Cascade Technologies had floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking downtown Seattle. But Victoria Chen wasn't looking at the view. She was staring at her phone, watching $200 million slip through her fingers in real time. 3:15 in the morning. The email had arrived exactly 47 minutes earlier, and every second since then had felt like a countdown to corporate execution. The subject line was brutally simple. Final contract. Signature required by 6 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. Victoria sat alone at the head of the glass conference table, the only light in the room coming from her laptop screen and the distant glow of the city below. Her reflection stared back at her from the darkened windows. A woman of 38 who had built a 70-employee tech company from nothing, who had survived 3 economic downturns, who had been called ruthless more times than she could count. Right now, she just looked tired. The contract was written entirely in Japanese. 27 pages of dense legal text, technical specifications, and partnership terms with Takahashi Industries, one of Japan's largest semiconductor manufacturers. This deal would save Cascade Technologies. Without it, she would have to lay off 30 people by the end of the month. With it, Cascade would become a major player in the artificial intelligence hardware space. Victoria had spent 18 months pursuing this partnership. 18 months of video calls at 3 in the morning to accommodate Tokyo business hours. 18 months of carefully navigating cultural differences, of learning to bow properly during video conferences, of memorizing which Japanese business cards to accept with 2 hands. And now, with less than 3 hours until the signing deadline, her translator had walked out. Dr. Kenneth Ashford, 59 years old, Stanford Ph.D. in East Asian linguistics, $500 per hour with a 2-hour minimum. He had been Victoria's interpreter for the past year, and 30 minutes ago, he had sent a single text message. Family emergency in Boston. Taking the red eye. Sorry. Invoice to follow. No explanation. No recommendation for a replacement. No acknowledgement that he was abandoning her at the single most critical moment of her professional life. Victoria had already tried everything. She called 6 translation services, all closed until 8 a.m. She reached out to 3 business contacts who claimed to speak Japanese. None of them could read legal contracts. She even downloaded 3 different translation apps, but the technical jargon came out as incomprehensible garbage. Sensor array implementation pursuant to subsection 4.7 of the manufacturing protocols regarding became feeling stick rule following under part 4.7 about making things regarding useless. Victoria stood up and walked to the windows, pressing her forehead against the cold glass. 42 floors below, Seattle was mostly dark. A few cars moved through empty streets. The city looked peaceful, unaware that upstairs, a woman's entire company was bleeding out. Her phone buzzed. A text from James Reeves, her CFO. Any luck? Board wants an update. Victoria didn't respond. What could she say? That she had put all of Cascade's remaining capital into this partnership based on preliminary terms? That if this deal fell through, the company would be insolvent in 6 weeks? That 70 families depended on her making this work, and she had no idea how. She looked down at her phone again, scrolling through her contacts as if a Japanese legal expert might magically appear between the dentist and her dry cleaner. Then she heard it, a soft mechanical hum from the hallway outside. The sound of a vacuum cleaner moving across the carpet in the long executive corridor. Victoria checked her watch. 3:28 a.m. The night cleaning crew. She barely noticed them, truthfully. They came in after midnight, worked in silence, and disappeared before the first employees arrived at 7. Victoria had seen them countless times over the years, quiet figures in gray uniforms, pushing carts loaded with supplies, emptying trash bins, wiping down conference tables. Invisible people. The vacuuming stopped. Footsteps approached the boardroom. The door opened, and a man stepped inside, pushing a cleaning cart. He paused when he saw Victoria standing at the window. "Oh, sorry, ma'am. I didn't know anyone was here. I can come back later." His voice was quiet, apologetic. He was somewhere in his 40s, wearing the standard gray uniform with Sunrise Janitorial Services embroidered on the chest. Dark hair starting to gray at the temples. Tired eyes, but kind ones. A name tag read Marcus Chun. Victoria waved him off without really looking at him. It's fine. Do what you need to do. Marcus hesitated, then began his routine. He emptied the trash bin beside the conference table. He wiped down the whiteboard on the far wall. He moved with practiced efficiency, someone who had done this exact job hundreds of times before. Victoria returned to the table and sat down, staring at the Japanese contract on her screen. She rubbed her eyes, exhaustion pressing down on her like a physical weight. Damn it, she muttered under her breath. Marcus glanced over from where he was cleaning the coffee station in the corner. Rough night. Victoria let out a bitter laugh. You could say that. He nodded and went back to his work, wiping down the coffee maker. For a moment, the only sound was the soft swish of the cleaning cloth against stainless steel. Then Victoria heard herself speaking, as if talking to the empty room rather than to the janitor. I have a contract that needs to be signed in less than 3 hours. It's written in Japanese. My translator quit. And if I can't read this contract, 70 people lose their jobs. She didn't know why she was saying this out loud. Maybe because it was 3:30 in the morning and she was alone and desperate. Maybe because sometimes you need to speak your failure into the world before it becomes real. Marcus stopped cleaning. He looked up. What kind of contract? He asked quietly. Victoria glanced at him, surprised he was still listening. Manufacturing partnership. Semiconductors. Very technical. Takahashi Industries. Victoria's head snapped toward him so fast, she felt a muscle pull in her neck. What did you just say? Marcus looked uncomfortable suddenly, as if he had spoken out of turn. I saw the company name on some of the papers on your desk last week, when I was emptying the recycling bin. Takahashi Industries. They're one of the largest semiconductor manufacturers in Osaka. Victoria stared at him. You know who Takahashi Industries is? Yes, ma'am. Ow! Marcus hesitated, then shrugged. I used to follow the tech industry pretty closely. Victoria stood up slowly. Something in his tone, something careful and measured, made her pause. Used to? Before I worked here, Marcus said quietly. He picked up the spray bottle again, as if trying to return to invisibility. But Victoria wasn't letting this go. What did you do before you worked here? Another long pause. Marcus set down the spray bottle and met her eyes for the first time. I was a corporate interpreter. The room went completely silent. Victoria felt her heartbeat in her throat. You were a what? A corporate interpreter, Marcus repeated. English to Japanese. Japanese to English. I worked for international corporations facilitating negotiations. Victoria crossed the room in 3 long strides until she was standing directly in front of him. Are you serious right now? You speak Japanese? Yes, ma'am. Fluently? Yes, ma'am. Victoria felt something crack open in her chest. Hope, suspicion, desperation all tangled together. Then what the hell are you doing cleaning toilets? Marcus's face tightened, but his voice stayed calm. Paying rent. Victoria grabbed her laptop from the conference table and brought it over, turning the screen toward him. The Japanese contract filled the display, dense columns of kanji characters and legal terminology. Can you read this? She demanded. Marcus looked at the screen. His eyes moved across the text with startling speed, left to right, top to bottom. He scrolled down, kept reading. Victoria watched his face, trying to detect any sign of bluffing. After about 30 seconds, Marcus looked up. It's a limited partnership agreement for semiconductor manufacturing with specific provisions regarding intellectual property transfer, quality control protocols, and payment schedules tied to delivery milestones. Victoria's knees felt weak. You just read that? Just now. Yes, ma'am. In 30 seconds. I was a simultaneous interpreter, Marcus said quietly. Reading speed was part of the job. Victoria stared at him. This man, this janitor who she had walked past 100 times without ever really seeing, had just summarized a complex legal document in seconds. Why didn't you tell anyone you could do this? She asked, her voice rising slightly. Marcus looked at her with an expression she couldn't quite read. Sadness, maybe, or exhaustion. Who would I tell? And why would it matter? It matters right now, Victoria said fiercely. It matters a lot right now. She grabbed his arm, an instinct, not a conscious decision, and pulled him toward the conference table. Sit, please. I need your help. Marcus didn't move. Ma'am, I don't think. I will pay you, Victoria interrupted. Whatever you want. Name your price. Marcus shook his head slowly. It's not about money. Then what is it about? He looked at her for a long moment. I haven't done this kind of work in 7 years. I'm not certified anymore. I don't have insurance. If I make a mistake and you lose money because of bad translation, you'll sue me for everything I have. I won't, Victoria said quickly. You will, Marcus replied calmly. Because that's what people like you do. The words hung in the air like a slap. Victoria felt her face flush. People like me? CEOs, Marcus said simply. People with lawyers. People who can afford to destroy someone when things go wrong. Victoria wanted to argue, but she couldn't. Because he was right. She had sued contractors before. She had fired employees without hesitation. She had built her career on being ruthless when necessary. But right now, she needed him. I'm asking you, Victoria said. And for the first time in years, she heard genuine pleading in her own voice. Please, help me understand this contract. That's all I'm asking. Just help me read it. Marcus looked at the laptop, then at Victoria, then at the empty boardroom, as if weighing something she couldn't see. Finally, he spoke. I have a daughter, Naomi. She's 9 years old. Victoria blinked, confused by the sudden change in topic. Okay. She has juvenile diabetes, Marcus continued. Type 1. She needs insulin every day. The good kind costs $300 a month, even with insurance. If I lose this job because I help you and something goes wrong, I can't afford her medication. Victoria felt something twist in her stomach. I won't let anything happen to your job. I promise. Marcus gave her a look that made it clear what he thought of promises from executives. 2 years ago, Marcus said slowly, your company started a community outreach program, a charitable foundation. It was supposed to help low-income families in Seattle with medical expenses. Victoria nodded. She remembered. The Cascade Foundation. James Reeves had suggested it for tax purposes and good PR. I applied, Marcus said quietly, for help with Naomi's medication costs. 3 times. Each time, I was told I didn't qualify because my income was $52 above the threshold. $52. Victoria's face went hot. She had never personally reviewed foundation applications. She had delegated that to James. So forgive me, Marcus said, his voice still calm, but carrying an edge now. If I don't trust promises from people in corner offices. Victoria stood there, the weight of his words pressing down on her. She wanted to defend herself, to explain that she hadn't known, that it wasn't personal. But what would that sound like? Sorry, I was too busy being successful to notice your daughter needed help. Instead, she said the only thing that felt true. I'm sorry. Marcus looked surprised. I'm sorry, Victoria repeated. I didn't know about your application. I should have. That was wrong. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Then Victoria pulled out her phone and opened her banking app. She navigated to her personal account, not the company account, and initiated a transfer. $5,000. She turned the screen toward Marcus. This isn't payment for tonight, she said. This is for your daughter. For medication. For whatever she needs. No strings. Marcus stared at the screen. Ma'am, I can't. You can, Victoria said firmly. And you will. Because she needs it. And I should have helped 2 years ago. She completed the transfer before he could argue. Her phone buzzed with the confirmation. Marcus looked at her, something shifting in his expression. Not trust exactly, but maybe the beginning of it. If I help you tonight, he said slowly, I need your word that no matter what happens, my daughter is protected. No lawsuits. No retaliation. Nothing that touches her. You have my word, Victoria said. Marcus studied her face for a long moment. Then he pulled out a chair and sat down at the conference table. Show me the contract. If you're enjoying this story so far, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe. Drop a comment telling me where in the world you're watching from. I love hearing from you. Victoria sat down beside him, her hands shaking slightly as she turned the laptop toward him. The Japanese contract filled the screen. Marcus leaned forward, his eyes moving across the text with the kind of focus Victoria recognized, the focus of someone who had once been very, very good at something. Okay, he said quietly. Let's start with Section 1. The partnership structure. For the next hour, Marcus translated. His voice was steady, professional, precise. He moved through the contract page by page, explaining not just the literal translation, but the nuances, the cultural implications, the legal weight of specific phrases, the places where the Japanese version said something slightly different than what Victoria had assumed from the preliminary English summary. Victoria typed notes furiously, asking questions, clarifying terms. She had worked with Dr. Ashford for a year, and in 60 minutes, Marcus had given her more useful insight than Ashford had provided in 12 months. This section here, Marcus said, pointing to a dense paragraph in the middle of page 14. This is important. They're requiring that all intellectual property developed during the partnership becomes joint property, with Takahashi holding primary rights to any patents filed in Asia. Victoria frowned. That's not what Ashford told me. He said it was joint property across all territories. Marcus shook his head. The English summary probably said that, but the Japanese contract is more specific. They're very careful with language. This phrase here, Yuzin Teki Kenri, it means priority rights, not equal rights. It's subtle, but legally significant. Victoria felt her stomach tighten. So, would they control the Asian market completely? Effectively, yes. She sat back in her chair, processing this. That changes the entire value proposition of the deal. Marcus said nothing. He simply waited, his hands resting on the table. Victoria looked at him, really looked at him for the first time. The tired eyes, the gray uniform, the name tag that probably cost 50 cents. This man had just saved her from signing away her company's future, and she had never even known he existed. Why did you stop? She asked quietly. Marcus looked up. Stop what? Interpreting. You were obviously brilliant at it. What happened? For the first time all night, Marcus's careful composure cracked slightly. His jaw tightened. His hands curled into fists on the table. My wife died, he said simply. Victoria felt the air leave her lungs. I'm so sorry. Yuki, Marcus said, his voice distant now, as if he were speaking from somewhere far away. She was Japanese. We met when I was studying in Osaka. She was a translator for Tokyo University. We fell in love in 2 languages. He smiled faintly, but it was the saddest smile Victoria had ever seen. She had pancreatic cancer. Marcus continued. By the time they found it, it was stage 4. She died 6 months later. Naomi was 2 years old. Victoria wanted to reach out, to touch his hand, to do something, but she didn't know if that would be welcome. After Yuki died, Marcus said, I couldn't work. I couldn't sit in boardrooms translating contract negotiations while my daughter was at home without her mother. I took a year off, then 2 years. Then the certifications lapsed. The contacts dried up. The industry moved on. He looked down at his hands. By the time I was ready to work again, no one would hire me. 7-year gap on the resume. No recent references. No active credentials. So I took what I could get. Janitorial work, Victoria said softly. Janitorial work? Marcus confirmed. Night shift, so I can be home when Naomi gets off school. It pays enough for rent and food. Most of the time. Victoria felt something burning behind her eyes. Not pity. Pity was condescending and useless. What she felt was recognition. Here was a man who had sacrificed everything for love, who had walked away from success to be present for his daughter, and the world had punished him for it. You're still brilliant at this, Victoria said. That doesn't go away. Marcus shrugged. Doesn't matter if no one will hire you. Victoria opened her mouth to argue, but her phone buzzed sharply on the table. She glanced at the screen. 5:14 a.m. 46 minutes until the contract deadline. We need to finish this, Victoria said, pushing her emotions aside. Business first. Always business first. Can you walk me through the rest? Marcus nodded and turned back to the screen. They worked through sections 15 through 27. Payment schedules tied to production milestones. Quality control provisions. Dispute resolution procedures that heavily favored Japanese arbitration. termination clauses that would leave Cascade liable for manufacturing costs if the partnership dissolved in the first 2 years. With every page, Victoria's understanding of the deal shifted. What she had thought was a straightforward partnership was actually a carefully structured agreement that gave Takahashi significant control while limiting Cascade's flexibility. "This isn't a partnership," Victoria said slowly as Marcus finished translating the final section. "This is a takeover with extra steps." Marcus said nothing, but his expression confirmed her assessment. Victoria stood up and walked to the window again. The sky was beginning to lighten, deep blue turning to pale gray. Dawn was coming. In 38 minutes, Takahashi Industries would expect her signature on this contract. She thought about the 70 employees depending on her, the families, the mortgages and car payments and college tuitions riding on her decision. She thought about walking into the office in 3 hours and telling everyone that Cascade Technologies was done. Then she thought about signing this contract and slowly losing control of her own company, watching Takahashi absorb her intellectual property piece by piece until Cascade was nothing but a subsidiary with an American address. Victoria turned around. Marcus was watching her quietly, waiting. "What would you do?" she asked. Marcus looked surprised. "Ma'am, I can't. I'm not asking for legal advice," Victoria interrupted. "I'm asking what you, Marcus-chun, would do if this were your company." Marcus was quiet for a long time. Then he spoke. In Japanese business culture, saying no directly is considered rude. But saying yes doesn't always mean agreement. It often means, "I understand what you're asking." Victoria frowned. "I don't follow." "You respond to Takahashi before 6 a.m., Marcus said carefully. "You thank them for the contract. You acknowledge the terms. And you ask for 48 hours to consult with your board before signing. You don't say no. You say not yet. Will they accept that? If you phrase it correctly, they'll respect it. Japanese business values patience and thoroughness. Rushing a signature is American behavior. They'll understand a request for proper due diligence." Victoria felt something click into place in her mind. "You could write that response for me." It wasn't a question. Marcus hesitated. "Ma'am, I really shouldn't." "Marcus." Victoria walked back to the table and sat down across from him. "In the last 2 hours, you've done more for this company than anyone I've paid 6 figures to employ. You spotted problems my own translator missed for a year. You saved me from making a catastrophic mistake." She leaned forward. "Help me finish this, please." Marcus looked at the clock on the wall. 5:42 a.m. 18 minutes, he said quietly. 18 minutes, Victoria confirmed. Marcus pulled the laptop closer and opened a new email. His fingers moved across the keyboard with startling speed, typing in Japanese characters Victoria couldn't read. "This is how you open," Marcus said, his voice shifting into a tone Victoria recognized, the voice of a professional doing what he was born to do. Formal greeting, acknowledgement of their effort, expression of gratitude for the opportunity. He typed for 3 more minutes. "Now the request," Marcus continued. "You don't apologize for needing time. You frame it as respect for the partnership. You want to ensure your board fully understands the depth of their proposal." More typing. "And the close," Marcus said. "Respectful, humble but not weak. You're equals in this negotiation, but you acknowledge their status." He hit a final key and turned the screen toward Victoria. "This asks for 48 hours without damaging the relationship." Victoria read the English translation Marcus had typed beneath the Japanese text. It was perfect, respectful, clear, strategically noncommittal. She looked at the clock. 5:51 a.m. 9 minutes. Victoria's hand hovered over the mouse. Then she clicked send. The email whooshed away into the digital void. Victoria exhaled a breath she didn't realize she had been holding. "Now what?" "Now we wait," Marcus said. "If they respond within 2 hours, that means they're considering it seriously. If they wait longer, they're consulting with senior leadership." Victoria nodded slowly. She looked at Marcus, this man who had appeared out of nowhere at 3 in the morning, who had saved her company without asking for anything in return. "Why did you help me?" she asked quietly. Marcus was silent for a moment. Then he said, "Because 7 years ago, when Yuki was dying, my boss told me that taking time off would be career suicide. He said I needed to choose between being a good employee and being a good father. He met Victoria's eyes. "I chose being a good father, and I'd make that choice again. But part of me always wondered if there were bosses out there who would have understood, who would have valued a human being over a contract." Victoria felt something break open inside her chest. "You made me think," Marcus continued, "that maybe you're one of those bosses." Victoria didn't trust herself to speak. She simply nodded. They sat there in silence as the sun rose over Seattle, two people from completely different worlds who had found each other in the middle of the night. And Victoria, Chen realized something she should have understood years ago. The most valuable people are often the ones you never see. 7 hours later, Victoria sat in her corner office on the 42nd floor, staring at her computer screen. The morning sun poured through the windows, bathing everything in harsh white light that made her eyes ache. She had not slept, had not even tried. At 7:32 a.m., Takahashi Industries had responded to her email. The message was brief, formal, and in Marcus's assessment when she had called him, hopeful. They acknowledged her request for additional time and agreed to extend the signing deadline by 48 hours. They appreciated her thoroughness and looked forward to finalizing the partnership. Victoria should have felt relieved. Instead, she felt hollowed out, as if something fundamental had shifted inside her during those pre-dawn hours in the boardroom. She kept seeing Marcus's face, the careful way he moved through the contract, the moment his composure cracked when he spoke about Yuki, the quiet dignity of a man who had lost everything and kept going anyway. And she kept thinking about $52. $52 above the income threshold. That was why the Cascade Foundation had denied Marcus's applications. 3 times. Victoria opened a new window on her computer and navigated to the Foundation's internal database. She entered Marcus's name. 3 applications appeared on the screen, dated over the past 2 years. Application 1, rejected reason. Income exceeds eligibility threshold by $52 per month. Application 2, rejected reason. Income exceeds eligibility threshold by $48 per month. Application 3, rejected reason. Income exceeds eligibility threshold by $57 per month. Victoria scrolled through the attached documentation. Copies of Marcus's pay stubs from Sunrise Janitorial Services. Medical records for Naomi Chun showing a diabetes diagnosis at age 4. Receipts for insulin purchases. A handwritten letter from Marcus explaining his situation, his tone polite and humble and quietly desperate. The letter ended with a single sentence. "I'm not asking for charity. I'm asking for a chance to keep my daughter healthy." Victoria closed her eyes. The foundation had been her idea. Or rather, James Reeves had suggested it, and she had approved it without much thought. A tax-advantaged charitable vehicle that could improve Cascade's public image while supporting the community. She had never personally reviewed a single application. Victoria picked up her phone and called James. He answered on the second ring, his voice bright and caffeinated. "Victoria, did you get my message about the Takahashi extension? That's fantastic news. How did you manage?" "James," Victoria interrupted, "I need you to pull the Cascade Foundation records. All of them." A pause. "Okay, why?" "Because I want to know how many people we've rejected." "Well, obviously we've rejected applications," James said, sounding confused. "We can't fund everyone. We have eligibility criteria." "Who set those criteria?" "I did. You approved them. It was in the board packet from 2 years ago." Victoria felt something cold settle in her stomach. She probably had approved them. Probably signed off on a single page buried in a 100-page board packet without reading the details. "How many applications have we received?" she asked. "In 2 years? Maybe 300. And how many have we approved?" Silence. "James, how many?" 47, he said quietly. Victoria felt the room tilt slightly. "We've rejected 84% of applicants." "Victoria, the foundation has limited funds. We can't help everyone who applies." "What's the current balance in the foundation account?" Another pause. "About $230,000. "And how much have we distributed in 2 years?" "Approximately 60,000. Victoria set down her phone very carefully, as if any sudden movement might cause her to throw it through the window. So we have a charitable foundation with nearly $250,000 in it, and we're rejecting desperate families over $52. It's not that simple, James said, his tone defensive now. If we don't maintain strict eligibility standards, we'll be flooded with applications. We need clear boundaries. Clear boundaries, Victoria repeated. Her voice sounded strange to her own ears, distant and cold. James, I want every rejected application on my desk by noon. Every single one. Victoria, what is this about? It's about doing our jobs, she said. Noon. Don't be late. She hung up before he could respond. For a long moment, Victoria sat very still, her hands folded on her desk. Then she opened her email and typed Marcus's personal email address, the one he had given her that morning in case she needed additional translation help. She wrote, Marcus, I need to see your daughter's medical records. All of them. I'm not asking as your employer. I'm asking as someone who wants to help. Please trust me. She hit send before she could second-guess herself. The reply came 14 minutes later. A single attachment labeled medical_history.pdf and a brief message. Why? Victoria wrote back, because I should have looked 2 years ago. She opened the file. The medical records painted a stark picture. Naomi Chun, age 9, diagnosed with type 1 diabetes at age 4. Insulin dependent. Multiple emergency room visits for hyperglycemic episodes. Notes from doctors recommending continuous glucose monitoring equipment. Devices that cost thousands of dollars and weren't covered by Marcus's basic insurance plan. A letter from Naomi's endocrinologist dated 6 months earlier caught Victoria's attention. Mr. Chun, I must again stress the importance of obtaining a continuous glucose monitor for Naomi. Her HbA1c levels indicate poor glycemic control, likely due to missed insulin doses or delayed response to blood sugar fluctuations. Without better monitoring equipment, Naomi is at significant risk for long-term complications, including kidney damage, vision loss, and cardiovascular disease. I understand the financial burden, but I strongly urge you to explore all available options. Victoria read the letter 3 times. Then she picked up her phone and called Marcus. He answered on the 5th ring, his voice careful. Ms. Chun, why didn't you tell me it was this serious? Victoria asked. A long silence. Because telling wealthy people your problems doesn't usually make them want to help. It just makes them uncomfortable. The words landed like a physical blow. Marcus, Victoria said slowly. What exactly does Naomi need? It doesn't matter. It matters. Tell me. Another silence. Then Marcus spoke, his voice tight. A continuous glucose monitor. It's a small device that tracks blood sugar in real time and sends alerts to my phone if her levels get dangerous. It costs about $4,000 for the device plus $300 per month for the sensors. And your insurance won't cover it? They say it's not medically necessary. That fingerstick testing is adequate. Victoria felt rage building in her chest. Not at Marcus, but at a system that would tell a 9-year-old diabetic child that technology designed to save her life wasn't necessary. What else? Victoria asked. Miss Chun, I really can't. Marcus, what else does she need? A long exhale. An insulin pump would help. It delivers insulin continuously throughout the day instead of requiring multiple injections. Naomi hates the injections. She's 9. She cries every time. But the pump costs $8,000 and insurance covers maybe 30%. Victoria was already opening her laptop, searching for medical equipment suppliers. What brand of CGM does her doctor recommend? Ms. Chun, please don't. Answer the question. Dexcom G6, Marcus said quietly. But I can't let you buy this. It's too much. You're not letting me do anything, Victoria said. I'm choosing to do it. There's a difference. She found the supplier website, added the Dexcom G6 starter kit to her cart, selected overnight shipping. Then she searched for insulin pumps. What brand pump? Marcus was silent. Marcus. Tandem T. Slim X2, he said, his voice breaking slightly. But Ms. Chun, Victoria, please. I can't accept this. I can't owe you this much. You don't owe me anything, Victoria said. She completed both purchases, entering her personal credit card information. $12,000 total. She didn't even blink. You saved my company last night. This is me saying thank you. By buying medical equipment for my daughter? Yes. That's not how business works. Then maybe business is broken, Victoria said. She clicked the final confirmation button. It will arrive at your apartment tomorrow. Make sure someone's home to sign for it. She heard Marcus crying quietly on the other end of the line. Not sobbing, but the kind of crying that happens when a dam breaks, when someone who has held everything together for too long finally can't hold it anymore. Why are you doing this? He whispered. Victoria looked out her window at the Seattle skyline, at the gleaming buildings full of people making money and building careers and climbing ladders. Because 7 years ago, you made a choice. You chose your daughter over your career, and the world punished you for it. She paused. I spent 7 years choosing my career over everything else, and I'm starting to think I made the wrong choice. At noon, James Reeves arrived at Victoria's office carrying 3 banker's boxes full of printed applications. He set them on her conference table with a heavy thud. Every rejected application from the past 2 years, he said. Victoria, I really think you should let me summarize these instead of. Leave, Victoria said quietly. James blinked. Excuse me. I said leave. I'll review these myself. Victoria, some of these are pretty depressing. I don't think. James. Victoria looked up at him, and something in her expression made him take a step back. Do you know why I started this company? You wanted to build something meaningful. I started this company because I was tired of working for people who only cared about profit margins. I wanted to build something that actually mattered, something that helped people. She gestured to the boxes, and somewhere along the way, I became the exact person I was trying to escape. So get out of my office and let me fix this. James left without another word. Victoria opened the first box and began to read. If you're hooked on this story, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss an upload. Your support means everything and helps me bring you more emotional stories like this one. 3 hours later, Victoria had read 73 applications. Each one was a small tragedy. A single mother working 2 jobs whose son needed physical therapy after a car accident. Rejected because she earned $63 above the threshold. An elderly couple whose granddaughter they were raising needed hearing aids. Rejected because their combined Social Security income was $47 too high. A father whose daughter needed emergency dental surgery after falling off her bike. Rejected because the foundation doesn't cover dental work. Victoria felt sick. Every application had Marcus's face, his quiet dignity, his carefully worded requests, his heartbreaking politeness, even as he was being told no. She picked up her phone and called an emergency board meeting for 5 p.m. By 4:30, the boardroom on the 42nd floor was full. The 5 board members sat around the glass table, confusion evident on their faces. Emergency meetings were rare at Cascade, and Victoria looked like she hadn't slept in days. James Reeves sat at the far end, his expression carefully neutral. Victoria stood at the head of the table, the 3 bankers' boxes stacked beside her. Thank you for coming on short notice, she began. I need to talk about the Cascade Foundation. David Park, the board's financial expert, nodded. The foundation's been a great asset. Tax advantages, community, goodwill. It's a failure, Victoria interrupted. Silence. I'm sorry, David said. Victoria opened the first box and pulled out a stack of applications. In 2 years, we've received nearly 300 applications for help. We've approved 47. We've rejected 84% of desperate families who came to us for help. Victoria, James cut in, we discussed this. Eligibility criteria exist for a reason. For what reason? Victoria demanded. So we can sleep better at night, knowing we have clear boundaries? So we can tell ourselves we're being responsible stewards of charitable funds. She threw the stack of applications onto the table. Papers scattered across the glass surface. There's a man who works in this building, Victoria continued, her voice rising. His name is Marcus Chun. He's a janitor. Night shift. He has a 9-year-old daughter with diabetes. He applied to our foundation 3 times. 3 times we rejected him over $50. She pulled out Marcus's applications and held them up. $52 above the income threshold. That's why we said no. while we sat on over $200,000 in the foundation account. Victoria looked around the table at each board member. Last night, that janitor saved this company. He translated a contract that would have destroyed us. He has skills worth thousands of dollars per hour, and we pay him $14 an hour to empty our trash. And when he needed help, we told him he made too much money. Eleanor Santos, the board's longest-serving member, spoke up quietly. "What are you proposing?" Victoria pulled out her laptop and connected it to the boardroom screen. A spreadsheet appeared, detailed and thorough. "I'm proposing we actually use the foundation the way it was intended," Victoria said. "I've reviewed every rejected application from the past 2 years. I'm recommending we approve 184 of them retroactively." James stood up. "Victoria, that's nearly $1 million. $873,000, Victoria corrected, "which we can afford. I'm also proposing we eliminate the arbitrary income threshold and replace it with need-based assessment. If someone is working full-time and still can't afford medical care for their child, they need help. Period. This is going to open the floodgates," James argued. "We'll have thousands of applications." "Good," Victoria said sharply. "Then we'll know how many people in this community are struggling, and we'll figure out how to actually help them instead of finding reasons to say no." She clicked to the next slide. "I'm also proposing we commit an additional $500,000 from company reserves to the foundation annually. This isn't charity. This is investment in the community that supports this business." David Park was studying the spreadsheet. "This is aggressive, Victoria, but not impossible. If we restructure some of our discretionary spending." "My salary," Victoria interrupted. "Cut it by 20%. Put that toward the foundation." The room went silent. "Victoria," Eleanor said gently, "that's not necessary." "It is necessary," Victoria said, "because I can't afford it. Because I have stock options and investments and a house I own outright. And Marcus Chun is choosing between his daughter's insulin and keeping the heat on." She looked around the table. "I'm asking you to vote yes on this proposal. Not because it's good PR or good for taxes, but because it's the right thing to do." Eleanor Santos was the first to raise her hand. "I vote yes." David Park studied Victoria for a long moment, then nodded. "Yes." One by one, the other board members voted in favor. Even James Reeves, though his yes came through clenched teeth. Victoria felt something loosen in her chest. "Thank you. I'll have the paperwork drawn up by tomorrow." As the board members filed out, Eleanor lingered. She approached Victoria and spoke quietly. "I've been on this board for 12 years, she said. "This is the first time I've seen you fight for something that doesn't directly benefit the company's bottom line." Victoria met her eyes. "Maybe that's a problem." Eleanor smiled. "Maybe, but it's good to see." She paused at the door. "Whatever happened last night, Victoria, it changed you." After Eleanor left, Victoria stood alone in the boardroom, looking out at the Seattle skyline. The sun was setting, painting the buildings in shades of gold and orange. Her phone buzzed. A text from Marcus. "I don't know what to say." Victoria smiled and typed back, "You don't have to say anything. Just take care of Naomi." A moment later, another text. "The equipment arrived this morning. Naomi cried when we set up the glucose monitor. She said it's like having a guardian angel watching over her." Victoria felt tears prick her eyes. She typed, "She deserves a guardian angel." Marcus's response came quickly. "So do you." Victoria stared at the message for a long time. Then she made a decision. She picked up her phone and called Marcus. "Are you working tonight?" "Yes, ma'am. I start at midnight. Can you come to my office instead?" "Around 7. Hesitation. "Is everything okay?" "Everything's fine," Victoria said. "I just want to talk. Not about contracts or translation. Just talk." Another pause. "Okay, I'll be there." Victoria hung up and looked at her reflection in the darkened window. The woman staring back looked tired and uncertain and somehow lighter than she had in years. At 7:15 that evening, Marcus arrived at Victoria's office. He wasn't wearing his janitorial uniform, just jeans and a simple button-down shirt. Without the uniform, he looked different, younger, more like the professional interpreter he had once been. Victoria gestured to the chairs by her window, away from her desk. "Sit, please." They sat facing each other as the city lights flickered on below them. "How's Naomi?" Victoria asked. Marcus's entire face transformed when he smiled. "She's incredible. The glucose monitor is already making such a difference. She can see her blood sugar in real time. No more guessing. No more midnight panic attacks wondering if her levels are crashing. I'm glad." "Victoria," Marcus said, leaning forward slightly, "I need you to understand something. What you did today, the foundation changes, you didn't just help my daughter. You help hundreds of families who have been invisible for years." "I should have done it 2 years ago," Victoria said quietly. "You're doing it now. That matters." They sat in comfortable silence for a moment. Then Victoria spoke. "Can I ask you something?" "Of course." "Do you miss it?" "The interpreting work." Marcus looked out at the city, his expression thoughtful. "Every single day. Not the corporate parts, the expense accounts, and the status. But the work itself. The puzzle of translation. The beauty of helping two people from different worlds understand each other." He turned back to Victoria. "Language is more than words. It's culture, context, and tension. When you translate well, you're building a bridge. I loved building those bridges." "You still do it beautifully," Victoria said. "Once," Marcus replied with a sad smile. "In an emergency. But that's not a career. That's not stability for Naomi." Victoria had been thinking about this all day. Now she spoke carefully, testing the words. "What if it could be?" Marcus frowned. "What do you mean?" "Cascade is expanding into Asian markets. Japan, South Korea, Taiwan. We need someone who understands the language and the culture. Someone who can build those bridges you're talking about." She watched his face carefully. "I want to offer you a position. Director of International Communications. Full-time. Salary, benefits, the works. You be rebuilding our entire approach to Asian partnerships." Marcus stared at her. "Victoria, I haven't worked in this field in 7 years. You saved a $200 million deal in 2 hours," Victoria interrupted. "You spotted problems a Stanford PhD missed for a year. You did that after 7 years of emptying trash bins." She leaned forward. "Imagine what you could do with resources and support." "I don't have current certifications," Marcus said, but his voice had changed. There was hope in it now. "I'm not." "We'll pay for recertification," Victoria said. "We'll give you time to rebuild your credentials. And in the meantime, you'll consult on our partnerships. You'll help us not make catastrophic mistakes." Marcus was quiet for a long time. Then he asked the question Victoria had been waiting for. "Why are you doing this?" "Because you're brilliant," Victoria said simply. "Because this company needs you. And because 7 years ago, you chose your daughter over your career, and I think it's time the world stopped punishing you for being a good father." She paused. "Also, selfishly, because I need someone around who isn't afraid to tell me when I'm wrong." Marcus laughed. A real laugh, surprised and genuine. "I think you have plenty of people who do that." "No," Victoria said. "I have plenty of people who tell me what I want to hear. There's a difference." She extended her hand. "So what do you say? Want to help me build some bridges?" Marcus looked at her hand, then at her face, then out at the city lights spreading below them like possibilities. "I have one condition," he said. "Name it." "Naomi sometimes needs me during the day. Doctor's appointments, school events, sick days. I won't accept this position if it means choosing between my career and my daughter again." Victoria didn't hesitate. "Flexible schedule. Work from home when you need to. Naomi always comes first. Non-negotiable." Marcus took her hand. His grip was strong, certain. "Then yes, I'll help you build bridges." They shook hands, and Victoria felt something shift in the air between them. Not romance, not yet, but something deeper. Recognition. Respect. The beginning of trust between two people who had spent their lives on opposite sides of an invisible wall. "There's one more thing," Victoria said as Marcus stood to leave. "I'm hosting a board dinner next week. I want you there. Not as the janitor. As my colleague." Marcus smiled. "I'll need to buy a suit." "Expense it," Victoria said. "You're director of international communications now. You have a budget." After Marcus left, Victoria stood at her window and looked out at Seattle. Somewhere in the city below, in a small apartment she had never seen, a 9-year-old girl was sleeping peacefully, her glucose monitor keeping watch. And Victoria Chin realized that for the first time in years, She had done something that mattered more than money. She had done something human. But the story wasn't over. In fact, the real test was just beginning. Because corporate boards don't like change. Shareholders don't like generous charitable spending. And competitors definitely don't like companies that suddenly start valuing people over profit. The next 48 hours would determine whether Victoria's transformation would survive contact with the real world, and whether Marcus Chun, a man who had already lost everything once, would lose it all again. The crisis began exactly 36 hours after Marcus accepted the position. Victoria was in her office reviewing the revised Takahashi contract, the one Marcus had helped her understand and renegotiate into actual partnership terms, when James Reeves walked in without knocking. His face was flushed, his jaw tight. "We have a problem," he said, dropping a tablet on her desk. Victoria picked it up. The screen showed a news article from TechCrunch, published 20 minutes earlier. Cascade Technologies CEO goes soft. Million-dollar charity spree raises questions about fiscal responsibility. Victoria's stomach dropped as she read. Someone had leaked the foundation story. Not just the general outline, but specific details. The rejected applications. The $800,000 retroactive approval. Victoria's 20% salary cut. And most damaging of all, a quote attributed to senior Cascade leadership, saying the CEO was making emotional decisions that prioritize feelings over shareholder value. Who leaked this? Victoria demanded. James met her eyes without flinching. Does it matter? You did this. I expressed concerns to a colleague, James said carefully. The fact that a journalist picked up on those concerns isn't my responsibility. Victoria stood up, her hands flat on the desk. You sabotaged the foundation initiative. I protected this company, James shot back. Victoria, you're spending $1 million on charity while we're negotiating our biggest deal ever. Do you have any idea how that looks to Takahashi? To our investors? It looks like we value human beings. It looks like we're weak, James said. And weak companies get eaten alive in this industry. Before Victoria could respond, her phone rang. The chairman of Cascade's investor group. She answered, already knowing what was coming. The conversation lasted 8 minutes. By the end, Victoria had been given an ultimatum. Reverse the foundation decisions within 24 hours, or face a vote of no confidence from the investors. She hung up and looked at James. You must be very proud. I'm trying to save your company, he said. Even if you won't. Get out. James left, and Victoria sat alone in her office, staring at the article. Her phone kept buzzing. Messages from board members. Emails from employees asking if the company was in trouble. A text from her mother asking if she'd lost her mind. And then, at 2:37 p.m., a call from Marcus. Victoria. His voice was tight with controlled panic. I'm at Naomi's school. She collapsed during PE class. I'm taking her to Seattle Children's Hospital right now. Victoria was already grabbing her keys. I'm coming. Which hospital? Victoria, you don't need to. Which hospital, Marcus? Seattle Children's. 4th Avenue. I'll be there in 15 minutes. Victoria made it in 12. She found Marcus in the emergency room waiting area, still wearing his new business casual clothes from his first day as Director of International Communications. His hands were shaking. What happened? Victoria asked, sitting beside him. Her blood sugar spiked to 450. Marcus said, his voice hollow. The nurse at school called me. By the time I got there, Naomi was unconscious. The glucose monitor caught it, but not fast enough. Is she okay? They're stabilizing her now. The doctor said if we hadn't had the monitor, if I'd been at work on the night shift instead of able to respond immediately. He didn't finish the sentence. Victoria reached over and took his hand. But you were there, and she's going to be okay. They sat in silence for 10 minutes before a doctor emerged from the treatment area. Mr. Chun? Naomi's stable. You can see her now. Marcus stood, then looked back at Victoria. Come with me. They walked through the sterile hallways to a small room where Naomi lay in a hospital bed, looking impossibly tiny against the white sheets. The glucose monitor was on the bedside table, numbers glowing steadily, and 4 line ran into her small arm. She opened her eyes when Marcus entered and smiled weakly. Hi, Dad. Hi, sweetheart. Marcus knelt beside the bed, taking her hand carefully to avoid the four. How do you feel? Tired? Thirsty? Naomi's eyes drifted to Victoria, standing in the doorway. Who's that? This is my boss, Marcus said. Victoria. She's the one who got you the special monitor. Naomi studied Victoria with the serious gaze of a 9-year-old sizing up a stranger. The one that beeps? That's the one, Victoria said, moving closer. Pretty cool, right? It saved my life today, Naomi said matter-of-factly. Then, with the brutal honesty of children, why did you buy it for me? You don't even know me. Victoria knelt down beside Marcus, so she was at Naomi's eye level. Because your dad helped me when I really needed it. And because every kid deserves to be healthy and safe. Naomi thought about this. My dad says you're a really important person. Your dad is the important one, Victoria said. I just have a bigger office. That made Naomi smile. A real smile that transformed her pale, tired face. He told me you gave him a new job. One where he doesn't have to clean toilets anymore. Naomi, Marcus said, embarrassed. It's okay, Victoria said. She's right. And your dad is going to be amazing at his new job because he's one of the smartest people I've ever met. He speaks Japanese, Naomi said proudly. My mom taught him. She was from Japan. I know. He told me about her. Naomi's expression grew thoughtful. Dad says Mom would be proud of him. For not giving up. Victoria felt her throat tighten. Your mom will be very proud. And she'd be proud of you, too. You're very brave. I don't feel brave, Naomi said quietly. I feel scared a lot. Being brave doesn't mean you're not scared, Victoria said. It means you keep going even when you're scared. Just like your dad did. Naomi looked at her father, then back at Victoria. Are you scared? The question caught Victoria off guard. She thought about the TechCrunch article. The investor ultimatum. The vote of no confidence. Yes, she admitted. I am. But you're still trying to do the right thing? I'm trying. Naomi nodded, satisfied. Then you're brave, too. A nurse came in to check Naomi's vitals, and Marcus walked Victoria back to the waiting area. Thank you for coming, he said. You didn't have to. Yes, I did, Victoria replied. She hesitated, then told him about the article. About James. About the investor ultimatum. Marcus's face went pale. This is because of me. Because you helped me. This is because I made decisions that threaten people who are more comfortable with the status quo, Victoria corrected. You didn't cause this, Marcus. You just gave me the courage to finally do what I should have done years ago. What are you going to do? Victoria looked through the doorway at Naomi, small and fragile in the hospital bed. She thought about 70 employees counting on her. About Takahashi Industries and their $200 million deal. About James Reeves and the investors and everyone who thought compassion was weakness. I'm going to fight, she said quietly. The next morning, Victoria called another emergency board meeting. This time, she came prepared. The boardroom was tense. James sat at the far end of the table, confident and composed. The other board members looked nervous, caught between loyalty to Victoria and pressure from the investors. Victoria connected her laptop to the screen and pulled up a presentation. I've spent the last 18 hours crunching numbers, she began. I want to show you something. The first slide appeared, a chart comparing Cascade's employee retention rates to industry averages. Our employee turnover rate is 38% lower than the industry standard, Victoria said. Do you know why? No one answered. Because people want to work here. Because we pay fairly. Because we offer good benefits. Because we've built a reputation as a company that values its employees. She clicked to the next slide. This reputation has saved us approximately $2 million per year in recruitment and training costs. That's money we don't spend on job postings, recruiters, and onboarding new hires. David Park leaned forward, studying the numbers. Now, let's talk about the foundation, Victoria continued. She pulled up another chart. Our charitable spending last year, before the recent changes, was about $40,000. This put us in the bottom 15% of tech companies our size in terms of community investment. She clicked again. Companies in the top quartile for community investment see an average 7% boost in consumer trust and brand reputation. For Cascade, That translates to approximately $3 million in increased customer lifetime value. James shifted uncomfortably. The $800,000 we're spending on the foundation isn't charity, Victoria said. It's an investment. An investment in our reputation, our community relationships, and our ability to attract top talent who want to work for companies with values. Eleanor Santos spoke up. What about the Takahashi deal? The article suggested they might back out because of this. Victoria smiled. I spoke with Hiroshi Takahashi this morning. At 6 a.m., which was 11 p.m. his time. I wanted to address the article directly. She pulled up an email on the screen. The text was in Japanese with an English translation below. Mr. Takahashi wrote back within an hour, Victoria said. He said, and I quote, "A company that takes care of its community is a company we want to partner with. Your foundation work demonstrates the long-term thinking and social responsibility that aligns with our corporate values. We look forward to finalizing our partnership." The room went silent. He increased the deal value by 10%, Victoria added. Because in Japanese business culture, corporate social responsibility isn't a nice-to-have. It's expected. She looked directly at James. You thought compassion would make us look weak. Instead, it made us look like exactly the kind of partner Takahashi wants. James's face had gone red. Victoria clicked to her final slide. I'm not asking you to approve the foundation changes because they're morally right. I'm telling you they're strategically smart. They strengthen our brand, reduce turnover costs, improve investor ESG scores, and align us with international partners who value social responsibility. She closed her laptop. The question isn't whether we can afford to do this. The question is whether we can afford not to. David Park was the first to speak. These numbers are solid, Victoria. This is actually brilliant strategic positioning. Eleanor nodded. I agree. James, I think you may have misread the situation. One by one, the board members voiced their support. Even the two who had seemed most skeptical acknowledged that Victoria's argument made business sense. James stood abruptly. If this is the direction the board is taking, then perhaps it's time I consider other opportunities. Perhaps it is, Victoria said quietly. James left without another word. After the meeting, Eleanor approached Victoria. That was masterful. You framed compassion as strategy. It is strategy, Victoria said, but it's also the right thing to do. I'm done pretending those two things are mutually exclusive. That afternoon, Victoria called Marcus. How's Naomi? Better. They're releasing her this evening. The doctors adjusted her insulin regimen. Good. Listen, can you come to the office tomorrow? There's someone I want you to meet. Who? Hiroshi Takahashi. He's flying in to sign the final partnership agreement. I want you to lead the negotiation. Silence. Then, Victoria, I've been director of international communications for exactly 2 days. And you've already proven you understand Takahashi's culture and priorities better than anyone I've ever hired. You're ready for this, Marcus. Trust me. Another pause. Okay, I trust you. The signing ceremony took place 2 days later in Cascade's main conference room. Hiroshi Takahashi arrived with 3 executives from Takahashi Industries. The atmosphere was formal but warm. Victoria made the introductions. Mr. Takahashi, I'd like you to meet Marcus Chun, our Director of International Communications. Marcus will be your primary liaison for our partnership. Takahashi studied Marcus for a moment, then smiled and bowed. He spoke in Japanese. It's a pleasure to meet you, Mr. Chun. Marcus bowed precisely to the correct depth and responded in flawless Japanese. The honor is mine, Mr. Takahashi. Cascade Technologies is deeply grateful for your partnership and trust. For the next hour, Marcus led the discussion, moving seamlessly between English and Japanese, explaining technical specifications, addressing concerns, and building the rapport that would sustain the partnership for years to come. Victoria watched, feeling something she rarely felt, pride that had nothing to do with profit margins. At one point, Takahashi leaned over to Victoria and spoke in English. Your Director of International Communications is exceptional. How long has he been with your company? Victoria smiled. Not long, but I should have hired him years ago. After the signing, after Takahashi and his team had left, Victoria found Marcus standing at the window overlooking Seattle. "You were incredible today," she said. Marcus turned, and she saw tears in his eyes. "7 years ago, I walked away from this world. I thought I'd never get back. That I'd be cleaning floors for the rest of my life." "You were always meant to be here," Victoria said. "The world just needed time to catch up." "No," Marcus said. "You needed time to see me." Victoria felt the words land. "You're right. I'm sorry it took so long." "Don't be sorry." Marcus wiped his eyes. "Be better. Keep seeing people." "I will," Victoria promised. 3 months later, the transformation was complete, but still imperfect. Still a work in progress. The Cascade Foundation had approved 237 applications. Families across Seattle were getting the help they needed: medical care, educational support, emergency assistance. Marcus had built a team of 3 translators and was developing partnerships in Japan, South Korea, and Taiwan. The Takahashi deal was generating steady revenue. Cascade was growing, but differently now, thoughtfully, sustainably. James Reeves had resigned and taken a position at a competitor. Within 6 weeks, that competitor was facing a lawsuit over labor violations. Victoria sent him a text. Hope it was worth it. He never responded. Naomi's diabetes was under control. The glucose monitor and insulin pump had transformed her life. She was thriving in school, playing soccer, living like a normal 9-year-old. Marcus brought her to the office sometimes, and employees smiled when they saw her running through the hallways. Victoria had started a new practice. Every Friday afternoon, she walked through Cascade's offices, not to check on productivity, but to talk to people, to learn their names, to see them. One Friday, she found herself in the janitorial supply closet on the 40th floor, talking to Maria, a woman in her 50s who had been cleaning Cascade's offices for 3 years. "How's your son?" Victoria asked. She had learned Maria was putting her son through community college. Maria's face lit up. "He made the dean's list. First person in our family to go to college." "That's wonderful. You must be so proud." "I am." Maria hesitated, then added, "Ms. Chun, can I say something?" "Of course. People talk about what you did. For Mr. Marcus. For all the families in the foundation. It makes us feel like we matter. Like we're not invisible anymore." Victoria felt her eyes sting. "You were never invisible, Maria. I was just blind." That evening, Victoria and Marcus had dinner at a small restaurant near Pie Place Market. It had become a routine. Once a week, they met to discuss partnership developments, but mostly they just talked. About Naomi. About Yuki. About the strange journey that had brought them from opposite sides of an invisible wall to something that looked like genuine friendship. "I got an offer today," Marcus said as they were finishing dessert. Victoria's heart sank. "From who?" "Microdine. They want me to head their entire Asia market division. Double my current salary." Victoria set down her fork. "Are you going to take it?" Marcus looked at her for a long moment. 2 years ago, if someone offered me that job, I would have jumped at it without thinking. Financial security. Status. Everything I lost. And now I know there are things more valuable than money," Marcus said. "Working for someone who sees me as a human being, not just an employee. Being part of a company that's trying to do things differently. Having time for my daughter without feeling guilty." He smiled. "I turned them down. This morning." Victoria exhaled. "Thank you." "Don't thank me," Marcus said. "I didn't do it for you. I did it because I'm finally working somewhere that aligns with who I want to be. That's rare. That's worth protecting." They sat in comfortable silence, watching the ferries cross Elliott Bay through the restaurant's windows. "Can I ask you something?" Marcus said. "Always." "Do you ever regret it?" "The foundation changes. Fighting the board. Everything that happened." Victoria thought about it. About the stress and the conflict and the moments when she wondered if she was making a terrible mistake. "No," she said finally. "For years, I built a company that was successful but hollow. I had everything except the thing that actually mattered, which is knowing that what I do makes a difference in people's lives. Real people, not just shareholders." She looked at Marcus. "You gave me that. That night in the boardroom, when you could have stayed invisible, you took a risk. And that risk changed everything. You changed everything, Marcus corrected. I just translated a contract. You did more than that, Victoria said. You reminded me that the most valuable people are often the ones we never see. And once you see them, you can't unsee them. 6 months after that night, in the boardroom, Cascade Technologies held its annual company meeting. 500 employees filled the auditorium. Victoria stood at the podium, looking out at the faces she now knew by name. This year has been transformative, Victoria began. We closed our largest partnership in company history. We expanded into 3 new markets. Revenue is up 18%. Applause. But that's not what I'm most proud of, Victoria continued. What I'm most proud of is this. A video began playing on the screen behind her. Families who had received help from the Cascade Foundation telling their stories. A single mother whose son got the surgery he needed. An elderly couple raising their granddaughter. A father whose daughter could finally afford her diabetes medication. The video ended with Naomi, smiling into the camera, healthy and vibrant. Ms. Victoria gave me my life back. And she gave my dad his life back, too. That's what real success looks like. The auditorium was silent. Then someone started clapping. Then another person. Within seconds, all 500 employees were on their feet. Victoria looked out at them, tears streaming down her face. In the front row, Marcus was standing, clapping, crying. After the meeting, employees lined up to talk to Victoria. Not about work, but about the foundation, about their own families, about their gratitude for working at a company that cared. Maria, the cleaner Victoria had spoken to months earlier, approached hesitantly. Ms. Chun, my son graduated yesterday. He wants to be a software engineer. He wants to work here someday. Victoria smiled. We'd be lucky to have him. As the auditorium emptied, Marcus approached the podium. Hell of a speech. Hell of a year, Victoria replied. They stood together in the empty auditorium, 2 people who had met as CEO and janitor and become something else entirely. Colleagues, friends, partners in building something that mattered. You know what the best part is? Marcus said, What? Naomi wants to be a doctor. She says she wants to help kids like her. Kids who are sick and scared. Victoria felt her chest tighten. She's going to be amazing. She is. And it's because you gave her the chance to survive long enough to dream. They walked out of the auditorium together, into the Seattle evening, into a future that looked nothing like the one Victoria had planned, but everything like the one she needed. Cascade Technologies continued to grow. The Takahashi partnership expanded. The foundation helped thousands of families. Marcus built an international communications department that became a model for the entire tech industry. But the real success, the thing that mattered most, was simpler than that. Victoria had learned to see people. And once you see people, really see them, everything changes. Not overnight, not perfectly, but genuinely. And that was enough. Thank you so much for watching until the end. If you love this story, check out the other videos on your screen now. I think you'll really enjoy them. And don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. See you in the next story.